Tesla breaks the unbreakable. Shares are falling after a disastrous reveal of its latest vehicle. It's called the Cybertruck, an electric pickup meant to compete.
An international storm has erupted over Tesla's Cybertruck, once celebrated for its design but now facing global backlash. The criticism escalated following Elon Musk's dispute with federal agencies, drawing disdain toward both him and his company. Government authorities are seizing cars and voiding registrations, casting doubt on the car's future. Originally hyped as a groundbreaking release, the growing number of prohibition orders has sparked speculation about a potential global ban on the Cybertruck. But the backlash isn't just happening behind closed doors, it's exploding into full-blown global outrage. And nowhere is the fury more intense than in the UK, where Cybertruck owners aren't just facing bans, they're becoming the punchline of a brutal joke. Is this just the beginning of a worldwide crackdown, or is there something even darker behind these shocking bans? United Kingdom. Cybertruck fans have sadly been the target of numerous gags and teasing, as their uniquely angular-shaped vehicles provoke strong responses and disapproval that reach well beyond the boundaries of British territorial waters. In fact, various overseas authorities are now moving to impose strict and far-reaching controls on this visionary electric vehicle, viewing it with great alarm and deeming it to be a serious threat to the well-being of local populations due to its sharply angled shape, topped off by its enormous weight that poses multiple safety issues. The United Kingdom has delivered a tremendous and serious setback to Tesla in its grandiose and ambitious designs for the presence of Cybertrucks on UK highways. In a very dramatic turn of events that unfolded in January 2025, the police authorities in Greater Manchester took bold and decisive action by seizing a Cybertruck after they became aware of the fact that it did not have the certificate of conformity that is required by local legislation. This particular vehicle was found to be non-compliant with several key and crucial local safety regulations, and consequently, it was subsequently seized by the authorities. The long and extensive list of compliance problems presents itself as a comprehensive and detailed indictment of the circumstances present. The most obvious and glaring issue stems from the substantial size of the vehicle in question. It has a weight that nearly reaches an impressive 7,000 pounds, and a width of over 2.2 meters. This massive size creates serious and significant constraints on the current infrastructure of Britain due to the fact that driving and maneuvering such a massive vehicle requires the obtaining of special licensing. Hence, drivers who would like to drive this monster of a car would need to obtain a Category C1 license, the very same kind of license that is usually used for the purposes of driving a small commercial truck. The various design elements that constitute the Cybertruck have actually given rise to a lot of concerns and issues among both experts and consumers. Whereas the theatrical stainless steel body, which is defined by distinctive chopped edges, may be aesthetically appealing and engaging to some, it sadly falls short of meeting the minimum safety standards required. In fact, British legislation on the safety of road vehicles actually makes it categorically compulsory that the edges of cars be rounded off to a minimum of 3.2 millimeters radius in order to better protect pedestrians from any potential injury. The reasoning for this specific requirement becomes quite clear when one considers the potential repercussions resulting from a low-speed impact involving the vehicle. The pressure created during such a collision would quite likely result in very severe injuries, much the same as one would suffer when wrestling with a commercial can opener in a quite vigorous fashion. Other design features of the car have not escaped the attention of passers-by and enthusiasts alike. The new full-width light bar, which can by no means be described as anything other than attention-grabbing and eye-catching, unfortunately does not meet the extremely stringent standards set in the UK regarding intensity, placement, and visibility requirements for such features. Moreover, the vehicle's high acceleration capability of 0 to 60 mph at a blistering 2.6 seconds has caused safety regulators to raise a brow of concern, as one takes into consideration the vehicle's considerable weight, a hefty 3 tons. The incident caused the driver of the Tesla Cybertruck to lose control of his vehicle, which ultimately resulted in him being reported to the authorities for further investigation. This particular scenario raises many questions about the validity and legitimacy of these safety concerns that have been brought up in the first place. Do these regulations truly need to be implemented, to ensure the safety and protection of citizens living in the UK? Or would they instead be seen as an overreach of the government's regulatory powers that would be better off being implemented in solving other, more important problems that society is currently grappling with? The event helps highlight the ongoing and persistent challenges to manufacturers who are trying to get into and consolidate in new markets with their cutting-edge vehicles while dealing with the intricacies of strict regulatory schemes and stringent safety requirements that pervade the business. The UK isn't the only place where the Cybertruck is clashing with tradition. Picture this: a futuristic machine built for Martian terrain, barreling down cobblestone streets older than the United States. Could this sci-fi truck actually damage Ireland's priceless history? Ireland. Ireland, a nation famous globally for its heart-stoppingly gorgeous scenery and centuries-old castles, poses a peculiar challenge for contemporary automotive technology. Ireland is characterized by its soft, undulating hills, which are blanketed in centuries-old defenses, and this creates a jarring juxtaposition with the futuristic, high-tech look of Tesla's groundbreaking Cybertruck. This stark contrast between the old and the new is a fascinating story about the complexities of integrating state-of-the-art technology into the infrastructure of centuries-old architecture that has characterized the nation for centuries. The narrow and winding roads that wind their way through Ireland's green hills and its picturesque and quaint villages present a formidable challenge to the big and bulky form of the Cybertruck. These ancient and traditional roads, which have been lovingly maintained and preserved over the centuries, were never meant or intended to be used by vehicles as big and massive as this. The temptation to attempt to go down these roads in the Cybertruck would be the equivalent of driving a military tank down a bicycle lane, something that, however entertaining to imagine, only goes to highlight the essential incompatibility of modern electric vehicles and medieval roads. Beyond the physical restrictions contained within Ireland's existing road network, there are also considerable issues that are presented through the country's regulatory environment and affect the potential launch of the Cybertruck. In harmony with the broader specifications of the European Union, it is noteworthy that Ireland has introduced stringent and firm safety legislation that strictly governs elements of automotive design. The Cybertruck, with its quite angular and uncompromising edges that are composed of stainless steel, is a design issue that has already been problematic within the United Kingdom. Once more, these same aspects of design create a range of compliance issues that would be encountered within Ireland also. These eye-catching aesthetic design features, while they have a dramatic presence, will need to be carefully and rigorously inspected to be certain that they meet the strict European safety codes that put a high value on pedestrian safety. One of the single most influential factors that substantially affects the possible success and general viability of the Cybertruck in Ireland relates directly to weight limits imposed by regulation. More specifically, the vehicle licensing program embraced by the European Union and adhered to by Ireland imposes severe weight restrictions on drivers operating under standard B licenses. According to this regulatory paradigm, such drivers are permitted to operate vehicles with a maximum weight capacity of up to 3.5 tons. This weight limit is particularly important since the Cybertruck, even when it is empty of any additional cargo or additional weight, rests precariously close to this restriction, which presents problems with compliance and usability. This specific weight capacity then becomes a significant factor to remember, especially when designing around the common accessories that a Cybertruck owner would likely take with them on an adventure, which may include surfboards for catching waves, camping equipment for outdoor excursions, and other types of adventure gear that enhance their lives in the great outdoors. In addition to that, in order to drive the point home even further, the addition of some basic necessities that are indispensable to everyday living, like a traditional Irish breakfast, constitutes a logical and rational idea for any individual who is taking a road trip, may actually overload the car with weight beyond what is mandated by law, thus making the driver's license credentials entirely void. Current events have served to worsen Cybertruck adoption problems in Ireland. Tesla's 2024 recall of possibly jamming accelerator pedals has been followed by additional dangerous safety concerns. Such a fault brings with it particularly gruesome implications for Ireland's urban landscape. Imagine, if you can, the completely hellish and chaotic experience of losing all sense of control while driving through the busy city streets of Dublin. In such a scenario, one would never be able to hit the brakes, recklessly careened by well-known landmarks that define the city in the process, such as the massive Spire of Dublin. Such a scenario would definitely transform what is supposed to be an enjoyable and picturesque Irish road trip into a potentially hazardous and risky venture. It brings to bear even more forcefully the critical need to address these very serious issues surrounding safety before the car's release on the Irish market. The problems with the Cybertruck in Ireland present a fascinating case study of the intricate two-way relationship between the accelerating rate of technological innovation and pre-existing infrastructure. Although the car itself is truly revolutionary and innovative in automobile design, bringing it into Ireland's rich historical heritage environment presents the necessity for sensitive balancing of numerous variables. These range from surmounting physical constraints that can be foreseen to adherence to local standards and regulations, along with respect for safety prerequisites and the overall functional purpose of the vehicle within this unique environment. The intricate relationship that exists between the concepts of development and preservation ensures that a state is created whereby it is absolutely imperative that the entire process of development is ensured to be in harmony with both the pre-existing infrastructure as well as the safety measures required that have been put into place. Australia. Amidst the expansive and diverse terrains of Australia, there was a unique and remarkable trend in the automobile sector which captivated everyone's interest. The Cybertruck, the firm's ambitious attempt to penetrate the fiercely competitive market of pickup trucks, encountered significant and powerful regulatory issues that effectively barred it from entering the Australian automobile market. This ruling, although appearing at first to be surprising or unexpected, actually embodies a thoughtful weighing of many essential factors which are deemed supreme by Australian government regulators, with its primary concern revolving around human safety and adherence to prevailing infrastructure codes. The core concern is related to safety factors, and to date, they have proven to be a major stumbling block for the vehicle's clearance. Cybertruck's unique look, including angular design and hard exoskeleton, are gigantic handicaps in the event of crashes, contrary to the conventional vehicles that have been meticulously designed and engineered to perform effectively at absorbing impact by undergoing staged crashes with controlled deformation. The novel and strong hard shell of the Cybertruck does not deform when struck by other cars during crashes. This new feature could potentially transform otherwise survivable crashes into catastrophes. Although this new approach is definitely revolutionary in both design and operation, it presents serious issues with meeting the strict safety standards prescribed in Australia. The wildlife factor is indeed another vital element that plays a critical part in this particular regulation choice process. Australia is indeed famous across the globe for being home to an astounding proliferation of some of the world's most powerful and unique animals, and the risks created by the impact of such creatures are some of the factors making safety hazards impossible to ignore. The physical, structural rigidity built into the car, when thus involved, can transform larger creatures into fatal projectiles, therefore presenting a significant danger to other road users as well, besides the human occupants of the vehicle, in a manner that is quite unacceptable. This factor is especially significant when one takes into account the vast and expansive rural road network that blankets Australia, where contact with animals is more common and, due to the setting, often unavoidable. Apart from this, the left-hand drive character of the Cybertruck is yet another gigantic logistical shortcoming for its inclusion in Australia. The country's transport infrastructures are tailor-made left-hand drive compatible, and an unavoidable necessity for a right-hand drive arrangement cannot be helped. Despite Tesla having such a wide production capacity, modification of their Texan plant installations to suit the right-hand drive models would call for a completely different configuration in their production facilities. The economic cost of such adjustments would be prohibitive and most likely run into tens of millions of dollars of plant investment and production losses. The problem with infrastructure is far more in-depth and widespread than simply solving the specific issues of manufacturing. It effectively covers the whole of Australia's electric vehicle charging network. Although it may be the case that the large cities boast an eye-popping, impressive selection of EV charging points that are easily accessible to inhabitants and travellers alike, the picture begins to get a great deal more difficult and problematic when one makes the foray into the outback and the countryside. The enormous distances of Australia's outback result in there being a sort of charging desert to be constructed there. Huge areas where EV charging points are in desperately short supply or simply non-existent. That is a reality that would leave Cybertruck owners well away from civilization, making their car an expensive static sanctuary instead of the fearless explorer's vehicle they envisioned. The decision by the Australian regulatory environment to reject the Cybertruck can be interpreted as a careful and calibrated balancing act between competing interests and factors. Although the vehicle itself is an extremely innovative and creative design solution with the potential to revolutionize the industry, its very innovativeness also presents significant challenges. These challenges are of such a nature that they cannot be reconciled or integrated harmoniously with the pre-existing safety standards and infrastructural requirements that presently govern the automotive landscape. The end result of this situation serves to powerfully demonstrate the intricate and dynamic relationship between technological innovation, the evolution of regulation, and pragmatism within the automotive sector. This is particularly so in those markets that are characterized by specialized environmental conditions and infrastructural complexities that present additional levels of complexity to the introduction of avant-garde technologies like the Cybertruck. But Australia's rejection was just the beginning, because now the Cybertruck is facing its toughest battle yet. China's streets are a futuristic dream, but not for Elon Musk's angular beast. With laws so strict they could crush the Cybertruck's chances, one question remains: is this where the world's most controversial truck finally meets its match? China. The Cybertruck in China faces monumental regulatory barriers that make large-scale adoption highly unlikely. Even though it's not officially banned, its ability to zip across Shanghai streets is extremely low. The truck's angular geometric form and massive proportions present fundamental issues with China's stringent pedestrian safety regulations. These provisions, well established to minimize harm potential in anticipated accidents, are a gigantic barrier to the vehicle's acceptance. Although progressive, the design philosophy of the Cybertruck cannot be said to be pedestrian safety focused. Although possibly appealing to some, its fortress-like jagged design puts its suitability for urban environments into doubt. The design philosophy, although futuristic and bold, is flawed beyond its aesthetic appeal. China's regulatory environment presents a series of serious limitations that are particularly severe when applied to pickup trucks. These include the very limited access inside cities, which can narrowly constrain where such vehicles can be driven. There is also a mandatory retirement policy that includes putting these trucks out of service after 15 years of use. Even if Tesla were to re-engineer the Cybertruck in a manner that is consistent with the mandated safety protocols, it should be remembered that owners would nonetheless have to contend with a host of challenging bureaucratic hurdles as they attempted to navigate municipal codes. The complicated nature of these limitations is going to result in frequent frustration and challenges for car owners, making the overall process of owning such a car more onerous than it would otherwise need to be. In a most interesting and dramatic turn of events, world-renowned automobile giant Toyota initially made an application for energy consumption testing with the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, MIIT, of China, the government agency authorized to oversee such matters. In a dramatic and stunning change of heart, however, the company later on chose to withdraw its application in its entirety. The real reasons and motivations behind such a move remain unclear and shrouded in mystery to this day. It is possible that Tesla, the electric vehicle giant, came to the conclusion that the subject vehicle simply did not meet or live up to the specific regulatory requirements set forth by Chinese authorities. Or it is also possible that they simply did not wish to have to endure the public humiliation and shame that would be heaped upon them in the form of an official rejection of their application. Regardless of the incentive, the sudden withdrawal from taking it to be filed had an astonishingly rapid pace, roughly as rapid as a Cybertruck can accelerate from a standstill to 60 miles an hour in 2.9 seconds. The timing is particularly important for Tesla because the company's reputation in China has already been damaged following controversy surrounding purported braking system failure and battery-induced accidents. These have made sure that there are expectations that hopes of success with the Cybertruck in the world's biggest EV market remain under threat. Chances of the truck making significant market inroads are now remote. This is a question laden with meaning that comes up in the context of the place of the Cybertruck in the international car market. Is the vehicle an innovative vehicle unfairly hindered by regulatory hurdles? Or is it a design product that did not take into consideration the conditions of cities in its planning? This will depend on whether one is an innovator or a regulator. On the one hand, the Cybertruck is a powerful iconoclastic interpretation of automobile design that bucks conventional wisdom. On the other hand, its design can be criticized for not being sufficiently attuned to the safety-minded, high-density urban cores that characterize so much of contemporary urbanism. The higher stakes of this issue go far beyond Tesla as a company or even the product itself, which is identified as the Cybertruck. They go on to illustrate the constant and continual struggle that exists between innovative design processes and the inevitable adherence to current regulations. In addition, this issue points out the tension that exists between the speed of technological advancement and the essential safety issues that are of the utmost importance to the public in general. This case study itself serves as an important reminder that even the most technically advanced and cutting-edge products, irrespective of their level of technological sophistication, must eventually accommodate and fit into the pragmatic realities that define their respective target market environments. Cybertruck's experience in China is a valuable and perhaps expensive lesson on the absolutely critical necessity to keep regulatory setups in mind from the very initial stages of the design process, rather than leaving it until later and then trying to conform or alter these regulations. It is far preferable to factor them in at the outset of planning and development. Re-engineering the Cybertruck. Tesla's engineering team possesses the technical capability to re-engineer their stainless steel behemoth from the ground up, retooling it for compliance with international regulatory requirements. The vehicle's aggressive styling cues may be subdued, its weight distribution more evenly balanced, and its futuristic appearance massaged to comply with stringent safety standards imposed by international regulatory bodies. Yet, a complete overhaul of this sort would have significant fiscal implications. It would be a complex, resource-sapping endeavor that could potentially exhaust both fiscal means and stakeholder patience. More significantly, however, this revision risks compromising the essential character of the Cybertruck. Its unabashed, uncompromising look and raw, divisive good looks, the very factors that distinguish it from the homogenized ocean of automobiles present today, would forever be gone. The brutish good looks and in-your-face styling of the automobile are the same as those that serve to separate the automobile from the sanitized ocean of automobiles, which truly don't do anything uniquely notable. If those qualities were diluted, what would remain would be a shadow of itself, a domesticated version stripped of the wild, trailblazing attitude that elevated it to iconic status before it even reached the market. The mounting international furor compels us to ask questions much bigger than Tesla factories. Are regulatory bodies, with their extensive checklists of safety codes and protections for pedestrians, clinging too stubbornly to yesterday's standards, choking innovation under a blanket of bureaucratic oversight? Or is Tesla, in Musk's stubborn refusal to be confined by convention, gone too far in pushing those boundaries of innovation, designing a car that is too close to the line of the realm of irresponsibility? This conversation touches on some of the fundamental questions about the balance between regulation and innovation in the automobile sector. Government regulators, on the one hand, are helpful overseers of the public safety environment and setting standards that have managed to bring down traffic fatalities and injuries significantly over the years. Their strict criteria ensure that cars achieve minimum safety criteria, not just for the passengers, but also for pedestrians and fellow drivers on the roads. On the other hand, excessive regulation would also dampen innovation, forcing manufacturers to stick to ancient requirements rather than embracing new technologies and design philosophies. The car industry has a fork in the road ahead, where traditional safety paradigms are being stood on their head by new design thinking and technology that do not lend themselves well to existing regulatory paradigms. The Cybertruck is the ultimate expression of this conflict. Its unconventional design resists traditional automotive aesthetics while embracing new materials and manufacturing processes. While its brutalist design ethos might not conform to conventional safety regulations, it also reflects a bold step forward in the future of automotive design. In the future, conventional metal stamping will give way to new materials and manufacturing processes. The result of this debate will have serious implications for the future of automotive innovation. If regulators persist in their present rigid demand for traditional standards, they may strangle the very innovation that could lead to safer, more efficient vehicles down the line. However, if there is too much leeway given to manufacturers to push design limits, they will compromise safety in the name of innovation. Lastly, the failure of the Cybertruck is also a call for more mature regulation of autos, a regulatory climate that can reconcile the demand for public safety with the wish to promote innovation. It requires regulators to become more accommodating and futurist in their thinking, and for the manufacturers to demonstrate that their game-changing designs will have comparable or superior safety advantages, even if they make them in new ways. Way forward. The Cybertruck is a collision, on the most elemental level, of two clashing conceptions of car aesthetics and an emotive conveyance of an ontological conflict much larger than aesthetics. The new car has been a lightning rod for controversy, with passionate debate being devoted to transportation in the future and the thin line between innovation and repression. The controversy surrounding Tesla's futuristic car has coalesced into an extreme ideological divide, with two distinct camps having emerged to advance their respective positions. On one side, numerous nations have adopted a skeptical stance, imposing rigid regulatory regimes to restrict the vehicle's presence in their territory. These nations refer to a host of serious concerns, most notably revolving around the vehicle's distinctive angular design elements and elevated mass, which they contend pose unacceptable risks to public safety. Conversely, a passionate coalition of dreamers and technology enthusiasts has rallied solidly behind the Cybertruck as a symbol of human ingenuity and imagination. They do not view the car as a mode of transport, but as a reflection of what the future holds, a manifestation of man's inherent desire to challenge accepted conventions and reach beyond acknowledged boundaries. The question of whether nations can relax their controlling grip and allow this controversial car a free run on their road systems has grown increasingly multifaceted. Those with a deregulation stance contend that society will be able to count on its drivers and technology to cope with any challenges that may arise, and suggest that free markets and individual ingenuity will be able to handle any problems. But those who are demanding stricter controls have compelling counter-arguments, emphasizing the overriding necessity of maintaining public safety at any cost. They contend that the maintenance of social order and protection of citizens should take precedence over the allure of unbridled innovation, particularly in an era when automotive technology is advancing at record levels. The fate of the Cybertruck is still the subject of bitter controversy with no relief in sight. As the world continues to grapple with the meaning of this polarizing vehicle, there have also been questions asked about the nature of the role that regulation has in technological advancement. The solutions to those questions will have implications that reach far beyond the auto sector to chart society's course to innovation in a broad spectrum of areas. Cybertruck fans are presenting the argument that its shape is a rebuke to the revolution the business so fervently hollers for, demanding that it rock boring design principles and move toward a braver mobility future. Cybertruck enthusiasts argue that Cybertruck's new extreme design and look are precisely paradigm-busting innovations that move mankind beyond convention and tradition. Others who hold innovation to be worthwhile, however, hold that it has to be weighed against utilitarian ends. They believe that the public could not be required to be placed on the sacrificial altar to the revolutionary principle of design, and that technological innovation always needs to be weighed by prudence and common sense against possible consequences. As the world grapples with all these complex things, the Cybertruck has become more than a vehicle. It is now a symbol of our broader cultural battle over the pace and nature of technological progress. Settling the controversy will have the potential to set important precedents for how we interact with new technologies going forward, and could actually influence everything from self-driving cars to advanced public transportation systems. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Feel free to share your thoughts on whether Elon Musk should consider re-engineering the Cybertruck, or whether other countries where the Cybertruck is banned should consider loosening some of their regulations to accommodate new inventions, such as the Cybertruck. Until next time, ciao.